Hey, movers and shakers. Welcome to episode 3 of Stunt101. Today's episode is sponsored by. It doesn't matter who I'm sponsored by, so just shut your candy ass, sit down, and podcast. Haha. Please go to stunt101.com and enter code INSTAFAMOUS20 for your 20% discount on my new self-help book. Think it, do it, stunt it, think it again. Right, enough jokes. Today on this episode, I sat down with David Onuma. He's an intelligent, switched-on martial arts philosopher. His Brazilian Portuguese nickname is Malandro, means rascal. Maybe I shouldn't have given him that gift after he dissed my stick fighting demo. Haha. As standard, I always think of the good comebacks way after the situation. So maybe I need to get him back on another episode just to give my comebacks. So sit back and enjoy the conversation. Let's go. World premiere. Welcome back to my podcast, the action reenactments, and we've got David Malandro Onuma here today. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Good to see you.
7-time European BJJ champion, 3rd degree BJJ black belt under De La Riva, 3rd degree black belt instructor under JKD Bob Breen. Oh, the list goes on. We're going to be here for 15 minutes if I'm listing out all your things. So yeah, thanks for coming.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
Right, this podcast isn't going to be going so much into stunts and everything. We're focusing more on martial arts, which is why I wanted to get a real martial artist like you here. So, where do we start? Can we start the JKD lineage?
Yeah, my lineage is twofold. So I started my journey in Sigon Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do under Guru Bob Breen, Guru Sifu Bob Breen. He's widely recognized as the godfather of Jeet Kune Do in Europe, and he was primarily responsible for bringing Guru Dan Inosanto to the UK so many years ago, over 2 decades ago. So I trained with him for a long time, got my black belt and moved up through the rankings and eventually became his highest ranked student. I don't say his best student, but his highest ranked student. But along the way, I think it's about 15 years ago, more or less, I was put forward onto Guru Dan Inosanto's instructor program himself.
Right.
So I was put forward jointly by Guru Bob and also Guru Terry Barnett, who's also a full, I say also, he's a full instructor under Guru Dan Inosanto with Bob Breen. So they jointly recommended me onto the program, and I got accepted, and I've been on his program ever since. So under Guru Dan Inosanto, I have senior associate ranking in the Filipino martial arts and Jun Fan Arts Jeet Kune Do, and also I have a guru level ranking in Mafilindo Silat.
And Mafilindo Silat is different from Kali?
Oh yeah, it's completely different in the sense that its base is derived from the arts of Penjak Silat.
Yeah.
And Guru Dan's particular system is a combination of 3 different area sources of Silat. So they have Silat from Malaysia, hence the Ma, and then Silat from the Philippines, hence the Fi,
Filipino.
and then Silat from Indonesia.
Oh, okay.
So his system is called Mafilindo.
Malaysia, Filipino, and Indonesia.
Correct. And that was put together by Guru Dan and 2 or 3 other top experts, and ultimately he was left with to be the head of the system himself.
Right.
So I am ranked with him under that as well.
So, if you're so highly ranked in Jeet Kune Do, how do you have time to be a third-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well? That's a big-time commitment. I remember going to one of Bob's instructors because I wanted to learn BJJ, and his name was Dave Burkett.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, "Hey, Dave, I want to get my brown belt. How long is that going to take?" He's like, "Oh, probably about 8 years." I was like, "Oh, right, okay, I'll probably go and do something else. I don't have 8 years to train to become a stuntman."
Yeah.
So, yeah, how did you have time to do that?
Well, it's easy in the sense that I'm old. So,
You've put the hours in.
if you start something, no, you don't even have to be young. But as long as you're still alive and you carry on,
Yeah.
you can progress. Do you know what I mean? You can be 40 years old and say, hey, guess what? I want to be an electrician now. You go and train as an electrician and you do your job.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't take that long, but 3-4 years later, maybe you're a fully qualified electrician. And so you can do it. What happened to me, simply put, I don't want to oversimplify it, but simply put, pretty much all the martial arts I started to train, because there are some that I started that I didn't pursue anymore, but pretty much all the martial arts that I started to train, I more or less never stopped.
Okay.
So ultimately, over time, I achieved a rank in it and then just continued with it.
So was that your target to get the rank, or was it just one step at a time?
No, my target, I was going to say my target was never to get the rank. It's funny because when I was a teenager, when I first started martial arts, my major influence was Bruce Lee. Everybody wanted to be Bruce Lee, and so, to be able to fight, but more to be like Bruce Lee more than to be able to fight. It was more like, yeah, if I tell people I can fight, it looks good, So to a certain extent, everybody wanted to have that coveted black belt. So you can say, I'm a black belt, because black belt was considered as...
That was like a karate mentality, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was all the movies you see, a black belt was the sign of mastery.
Yeah.
Outside of martial arts.
Yeah.
Inside of martial arts, serious students will tell you it's the proper beginning of your training.
Yeah.
But of course, it's a very relevant step. But outside, you're a black belt, so you can kill somebody with your bare hands. You know what I mean? So I probably had it as a mini goal a lot of, many, 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 many years ago.
Before you got into it.
Yeah, but as I trained, even after I got my first, I didn't go into styles to become a black belt. It's because, especially since 1996, when I had my real exposure to Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah.
And through Guru Bob Breen, and more importantly, the integration of martial arts.
Yeah. It's funny you say integration, because Bob Breen set up a school near my old school in Dartford when I was in sixth form.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is interesting. It's different from judo or rugby or cricket. So I was like, oh, let me try that. And when I went there, I was like, right, I'm going to learn Bruce Lee style. So there was all these Wing Chun dummies, and we're learning BJJ, we're learning boxing and stick fight. And I was like, what is this? But it was like so interesting. There's so many different aspects, and that was kind of like mixed martial arts. Anyway, like you weren't just focusing on one and thinking you were amazing. You actually saw the real life, and it's applicable to the street.
Yeah, I mean, cross training, if you want to call it, or mixing your martial arts, is both a blessing and a curse, because it's a blessing because, for sure, it's like life and travel. If you travel a lot, there's more chance you're going to learn more about different cultures.
Yep.
and become more well-rounded as a human being.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you know those cultures inside out. It's just that you have an appreciation of those cultures and they become part of you, right?
Yeah.
But it's like martial arts too. You can train many different martial arts, and just because you might train 5 or 6, it doesn't mean you own or fully understand those cultures. You just might appreciate those cultures, but it doesn't mean you own them. So that's the blessing, is enriching yourself
Yeah.
in other cultures, other styles, other ways of thinking. The curse, if you want to call it, is that, and I've seen this many times, is that you get guys who do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, then they say, I'm a mixed martial artist. Or they say, I've trained in this and I've trained in that.
Yeah.
But they don't know that much, really. And so...
It's a bit of jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, I mean, that's a common expression because, generally speaking, people, well, not so much now, but before, people never used to believe that you could be an expert, in inverted commas, in more than one thing.
Yeah.
And so the expert in the one thing would often say, well, you can't be much good at that because you're doing that and that and that also. Yeah. But obviously it's not true, and even some of the things that make it obvious, for example, almost every person who started their martial arts journey from a younger age, and even those who start at an older age, guess what? They're already doing something else before. Now, what do I mean by something else? Right? They've got an alternative career.
Like a real life job.
They've got a real life job, or you're a student where you're studying academia, right? So you're actually already doing something. So all my martial arts qualifications, and I'm not going to go into too much, but all my martial arts qualifications were achieved whilst I was a full-time lawyer.
Are you serious? All right. How do you have time 24 hours a day to do that?
Oh,
because most of us are part-time. We go to school, go to uni, and you're doing martial arts as a hobby. So to actually do it in multiple disciplines and still have your career, how do you do that?
Well, I can talk about this a little bit more freely now than I used to, because I'm a qualified solicitor, and I still am a qualified solicitor, but I don't practice much anymore. I just do a few bits and pieces, right? And so, because I was I was a serious criminal lawyer doing very big cases and partner in a law firm, I wouldn't put that stuff out on social media or Facebook. You wouldn't see me taking a picture of myself going to court or going to the Old Bailey or going to the police station because I'm a professional doing a serious job.
Yeah.
And that obviously made me monitor what I put on Facebook. Anything I put on Facebook, literally, this pre-Instagram, etc., was to do with martial arts. So that was that identity, completely separate. So in fact, the majority of people that knew me or knew my persona as a martial artist had no idea I was a criminal lawyer. No. And I didn't advertise it either.
Vice versa.
Vice versa. Those who knew me knew that I enjoyed martial arts, but they didn't know
how good you are.
They didn't know how good I was or meant to be or whatever, right? Yeah. So, but my point simply is that I was in one career at one time doing a serious job with serious commitment and serious hours. Yeah. At the same time, I was still doing martial arts. So how did I become good at martial arts and then be good at being a lawyer too? So that's martial arts and that's lawyering, but they're still different skills, aren't they? Yeah. They're still different disciplines of life and of the mind, right? So training 2 or 3 martial arts is entirely possible. Of course it is. And look at what many people do in life. Guess what? They don't have a lot of money, so they got 2, 3 jobs. How do you have 2, 3 jobs?
It's easy.
It's easy, isn't it? You know what I'm saying? So actually, training 2, 3 or more martial arts is not as hard as it might seem. But the key is consistency, and longevity. That's the key.
What about when you got married and had babies? That takes some time away, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course it does. But I already was far down the road before that happened, right? So
if you were just starting off, it would be a lot difficult.
probably, because time is time, right? There's one thing which is harder to control is time, right? I mean, you can always become a master of making the most out of the time that you have, right? But obviously nobody can create more than the 24 hours in the clock, right? But as I said, it's longevity and consistency, right? So those are, I think, is crucial. You will have ups and downs, for sure. Of course you will. But if you're still there, you will see the graph goes up and down. But how can I put it? When you know you're winning when your graph continues to go up.
Yeah.
So even if it goes down, it's still going up, if that makes sense. You have a dip and then an incline. A dip, then an incline. But it's still, that's what you want. You want it to still to be going up.
Yeah.
If it's steadily going down, then obviously you've got major problems in your life, right?
Well, I'm thinking of injuries. That's usually what makes it go down. But someone like Bob, when I first met him, he had 2 double hip surgeries, hip replacements, he was doing all this breakdancing stuff on the floor. He was putting us to shame with the school kids.
Yeah, I mean, Guru Bob is a perfect example of having longevity in martial arts and consistency, despite having, pretty debilitating injuries, in the sense that, yes, he has all his limbs, but, when I first met him, this was pre any hip operation, and his hips were crumbling. And yet he never stopped. He adapted, he modified, and then eventually he went down the scary route, obviously, of having a double hip operation. But also remember, he was a very accomplished and established martial arts before the injury was developed, and then he continued and carried on after. But what have you got again? Consistency and longevity.
Yeah, we used to call him Bionic Man. I've got some videos that I found about you, because I know I asked you and you said, you didn't have anything. I've got this one. I think it's pretty cool.
Just having a bit of fun in this one in my academy.
I'll put the sound post. Oh, that's cool. Oh, I didn't see this bit. I just saw the first 10 minutes before I put it on. There's a really good trick coming up. I like it.
This is us taking martial arts very seriously.
It's good when you're relaxed. I like that. That's like a breakdancing move. Did you ever do any when you were younger?
Yeah, well, the breakdancing version of that one, they used to hold their foot.
They'll hold their foot
and jump over.
Hop, step over.
Yeah, and jump backwards as well. I don't think I can.
It's
probably
easier with a stick, right?
Yeah. I think I can. I don't know if I can jump over my foot. I've not tried it for quite a while, but I'm not going to try it for quite a while.
I used to be a b-boy when I was in uni.
Okay.
And if you're feeling a bit tired and you didn't want to do the jumping one, basically you do this, fall on your side, and then put the foot through. And it still looks stylish if you did it to music, so it's a bit of a cheat.
Fair enough.
And then I've got another one. Oh, not that one. Let's find it. Your weapons training for movie fights. That's you with a knife.
Yeah, I mean, this clip you're looking at here was just a minute clip I put up, and it was from a session in which I was teaching people in the same profession as you, stunt guys, who were going off to do another series of filming, and they wanted some ideas.
Yeah, that's really scintillating.
So it's a little bit of free play there, and then just some of the stuff I was going through.
Yeah. So did they use any of this?
I think so, but
Okay.
you know, it's they've been coming for a while. So
Yeah. It reminds me of obviously the Born Identity. That's really similar, and then the Raid.
Well, they're both heavily Filipino martial arts.
So this is what brings me back to the philosophy of Jeet Kune Do. So Bruce said, a punch is a punch and a kick is a kick. We've all got 2 arms and 2 legs.
Yeah.
So
well, we don't all, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
Human beings. That's how we start off.
Yeah.
Usually, most of us. And why are you calling this a teep or calling this a Muay Thai kick? You just need it to do what you want it to do, make it effective. So there's an element of naming things, but sometimes the naming things gets in the way of actually doing the technique. So he's saying do what's effective and throw away what doesn't work. So now when I look at the Raid, I'm like, oh, they're doing Kali and Silat. But now today I found out about Mafilando Silat. So there's no need to categorize it. What would you say they were doing in the Raid?
A mixture.
Yeah.
Yeah, a mixture of, Silat from wherever they drew it from.
I think they're Indonesian.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, probably from, Indonesian Silat. But, and obviously some Filipino martial arts as well. And whatever else they added in to make it look good, for the camera. Obviously, Muay Thai kicks or knees or elbows.
Yeah.
But there is absolutely a need to categorize, if you want to call it that. And in my opinion, there is absolutely a need to identify, okay? Because if you don't do these things, right, how can you pass on the art?
Yeah.
Oh, just do it like this. Right? Yeah, you do it like this, do it like that. Yeah. What's it
Do you
called?
know what? That's what they used to do, the French guys that came up with free running and parkour. They were like, I jump here, go there, tack, blah, blah, blah. Then when it came to England, we started naming them to help teach people.
Well, that's the point. That's my point. So how do you pass on the knowledge? You see?
Yeah.
And what you have to understand, this is really important. It doesn't make the art better because you've named it. But it's the same as, it's inevitable there'll be names. Once you have a language, there'll be names.
Yeah.
Right? And the name, you might have different names which for the same technique, right? But that will probably be because of,
Stop!
okay, your camera.
Yeah. That's what the clap is for.
Camera time. Gotta stop this.
It's annoying.
Yes. So what I'm saying is there is a difference between, well, a side kick is a side kick if you use the side of your foot.
Yes.
But in Taekwondo, they might call it whatever they call it because I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
And in karate, they might call it something else because I don't know what they call it.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that is one aspect. It's just cultural differences to call it the same thing, right? But then there are some systems which come from some cultures where they genuinely do things differently. So, for example, in Muay Thai, and I don't claim to be an expert, but in Muay Thai, their round kick is thrown more or less with a straight leg.
And it comes down.
Well, that's one aspect. It comes down, it goes straight, and it goes up too, right? So 3 different angles. And they kick with the shin, right? So it's still a round kick, but and you have different versions. They call it a cut kick or whatever. But that's how they kick. They kick with the shin, and they don't flick out with the foot, as opposed to Taekwondo, karate, and most of those other styles. So they will typically call, not the Thais, but other people will refer to that as a Muay Thai kick.
Yes.
Okay? And then there's another little known style, which is worth researching, called Bando, Bando. And we train elements of Bando because Guru Dan Inosanto is one of the highest ranked practitioners of Bando.
It's not on his t-shirts though. I
No,
don't remember.
no, it's not.
I probably did it, but I didn't know what it was called.
Yeah, but you wouldn't know because he doesn't teach the system, right? As in, he won't rank anybody in the system, but when he teaches, he may teach elements of Bando. But from what I remember and from what I was told by him, without wishing to misrepresent anything that he said, Bando has a lot of similarities to Muay Thai because they kick the similar way, they knee and they elbow.
It's from Burma.
Yes, it's a Burmese martial art, Bando. So that has some close links to.
Yeah.
And then you have I've forgotten the full name, Letway.
Okay.
And Letway is another style of martial art which is very vicious, very similar looking to Muay Thai.
Yeah.
The major difference between Letway and Muay Thai is they headbutt. Yeah. And that's part of the system. So when they train, and I know you're kind of filming this, they will jab, cross, hook, headbutt. That's part of they'll have the pads and they will headbutt you. So they will clinch and headbutt. They train it and they use it in the fights. Most people don't headbutt except if it's in the street, but you don't do it as part of the martial art. I've never. So it's there, like you can. People will tell you, oh, from here you can headbutt. They're saying it's like an option. In Letway, you do headbutt. That's the same as a knee or a punch or a kick or an elbow.
Yeah.
So anyway, there are some styles which are genuinely different in some of their moves, but yes, you do need to be able to differentiate between them. But I will.
You need to be able to bring them together.
Yes.
Like Bruce Lee advocated, eye gouging, shin kicks, do what's effective.
Absolutely. But also, the difference between some punches is not necessarily the punch itself. It's what follows or what has come before in the assortment of techniques.
Right.
So therefore you're talking about what's the concept, right? If you're just doing boxing, their footwork, everybody who strikes these days, whether it be Muay Thai, whether it be MMA, whether it be kickboxing, whether it be K1, anybody who strikes more or less punches like a boxer, right? They've got their hands up and they're jab, cross, hook, uppercut.
Yeah.
But what differentiates the styles or the stylistic approach will be what else they're allowed to do. Am I allowed to close the distance and elbow you? Am I allowed to knee you? Right? Am I allowed to put you in a headlock? Am I allowed to foot sweep you? What's the rules? So even though a punch is just a punch and a kick is just a kick, what differentiates these styles is what's the ethos behind it? What's the context behind it? What am I allowed to do? And that's what makes a big difference.
So what you're allowed to do, is that in a competition concept or in a martial arts style?
Well,
framework?
actually, kind of both, right? Kind of both, right? Because
trust me, I get so pissed off with judo as it is now. I'm a black belt in judo. And you go to a competition, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that, we're taking this out.
Yeah.
And you're like, what am I doing?
Judo
you can't touch anyone's face to push them off. It's so stupid.
I have no rank in judo. I've done a tiny bit. I mean, like, I probably haven't done more than 20 sessions.
But it's the same
collectively
as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They come from the same thing and they branch off.
Yeah.
The only difference is the rules, literally. So I did a lot of groundwork. And I was like, oh, I've got groundwork coming up in judo, so I'll do some BJJ just to polish up. And I went to the competition. As soon as the guy took me down, I started framing, pushing him off, and then I got him in a triangle and reversed it.
And they stopped.
They stopped it. They're like, you can't touch the face. It needs to be like this. Yeah. And I was like,
but in judo, you can't
so stupid.
you can't even do single legs anymore. You can't do any attacks.
So it's changing from a martial art to a sport, but back to your subject about after the punch, what you're allowed to do.
Yeah. So all I'm simply saying is, yes, a punch is a punch, a kick is a kick, and a knee is a knee, right? But depending on what you're allowed to do after or before, will determine on how you use it.
Yeah.
And therefore, that's where styles do make a difference.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when it comes to street combat, a real fight.
You're allowed to do anything.
Yeah, let's talk about that just for 1 second.
From a lawyer's point of view.
Forget from a lawyer's point of view for a second. Talking about what you physically can do, right? You are more likely to do what you know.
Naturally.
Right? What you know.
Yeah.
So, if you don't know very much, that little that you do know will probably come out a lot, because that's all that you know.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have people who have a lot of knowledge, right? But the knowledge is very wide, but the practical knowledge is not necessarily that deep. Yeah. So they can talk about a load of things. This kind of sort of comes back to the jack of all trades. So your ability to apply what you know is different to what you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? So, so basically, when you're training your martial arts, there is a system that you will follow. You will never use all of that system in a training environment, because you're never going to train with your partner and stick your finger in his eye every session, because, you know, it's going to be a real blind man's kung fu. Do you know what I mean?
Health and safety.
You're not going to do it.
Especially in England.
Well, anyway, how many times are you going to grab somebody in his groin or kick him in his groin? How many times are you going to
They
slap?
did that a lot in karate, apparently, in the 80s.
Well, you know. But, you know, broken bodies will be there for a long time, you know, if that happens. So you do have to adapt to a certain extent in order to have, you know, to train your art. All right? But yeah, that's kind of all I've got to say about that, really.
I've got a clip of myself actually doing some Filipino sticks. Tell me what you think.
Do I have to be honest about it?
Yes, you have to be, because it needs to look good for film. Heaven sticks. Abanico. That's it. So I'm very conscious that when people do demos like this, they fall into categories: button twirling or legit techniques.
Well, here's a funny thing, and I'm going to comment on your clip, but let me say this. Having been on film in one form or another, not like a movie, but being on, you know, in front of a camera doing martial arts for a long time, I'm aware of what I can look like.
Yeah.
Right?
A lot of people aren't aware of what they look like, so they tell us, keep filming yourselves, look at it, critique yourself.
Yeah. But there is a clear difference between I'm doing something, like, I could, with my age and my abilities now, I'm still not in bad shape, but I can do jumping, spinning, kicks. But I'm not going to look as good as a 23-year-old taekwondo guy or a former person. Or, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, there are a ton of people who would look much better than I would standing by themselves doing the move in the air, right? I would probably look a lot better doing it against somebody who's trying to punch and kick me when I demonstrate the move in the reality.
Right.
So therefore, why am I mentioning that? Because I'm saying your clip is of you doing sticks by yourself in the air.
Yeah.
So I would say, looking at that, it doesn't necessarily show a great level of proficiency by itself in the air. But that doesn't mean that if you did that against somebody who's fighting you, you wouldn't be able to use it. And do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a difference between, like, there are a ton of people who can punch faster than me. Physically. 0 to 60 and whatever, you know, faster than me. But maybe if we sparred, I can hit you before you hit me. just because of my timing and understanding of the motion.
Yeah. But then when it comes to doing it for film, you can't really hit them for real. So both of you have to work together.
Yeah,
they need to sell it. They need to time it.
Exactly. And that's where people like, there's a ton of them, in the movies, Jason Statham, Donnie Yen, Jet Li, although I know he doesn't do so much these days. And there's, there's I say an American guy, a guy based in America. I don't know his surname, but he's on Instagram as Ibrahim. I mean, there's a ton of really good guys out there. Yeah. The guy who played Boyka, I've forgotten his name now. Anyway.
Tony Jaa.
No. Tony Jaa is another guy. Is Scott Adkins.
I've heard the name.
Yeah, he's really good. So there's a lot of guys out there who look really good on film. Michael Jai White looks excellent. He's a genuine martial artist too, but he looks good in the. He can. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody's got that timing to be able to understand screen fighting.
Yeah.
I think I'd be all right at doing it. I think, but not having done it, I can't tell you for sure. But I know how to teach guys who are trying to do that for the movies.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to learn at the moment. I've actually got a present for you.
Oh. Let's hope I can carry these back home without getting arrested.
They're foam. You can block with them. They're pretty cool.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have you used them before?
Actually, not much. I don't own any of these at all.
Japanese tonfas.
Yeah, I don't own these at all. I know, and it's interesting that the way I know how they use them.
Yeah.
They use it. They're experts with this, but they use it differently to the way I would use it.
When they spin them around, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
But it's legit. It's not like nunchucks where they're just spinning them around.
But actually, this is a very hard weapon to. This is not the most practical weapon to use.
The sticks are, but.
And the reason why is, if you look like this, principally it's designed to be held like this.
Yeah.
So what it's giving you is protection on your forearms.
Yeah, for blocking.
So if I'm protection blocking, this is your striking edge, which is like, according to this, is like 3-4 inches.
Yeah.
Right? So, yes, they can spin, but this in itself is not going to give you the most power. Of course it will hurt. Anything will hurt if you hit someone. And I've seen demonstrations of it. But it won't give you the most power.
Yeah.
Because it's meant to be held like this.
Yeah.
You gave me this, I would probably hold it like this. Now there's going to be a lot of power.
Yeah.
And actually, I've still got the benefit of this in case someone hits me. I've got a block. So I would hold this like this, although if I had it like this, I know what to do with it.
But that looks cool.
This?
Film.
Yeah, of course it looks cool for film, but this is what we're talking about. Film versus reality.
Well, it's like nunchucks. As soon as you hit someone, it just bounces off them and you have to deal with the recoil.
But this is good as well, because if a guy chose to use this as his choice of weapon, after he gets beaten up, he can use them as mini crutches to walk home.
There was a Discovery Channel documentary about what the best weapon is. And they had nunchucks, bow staff, katana, and they had something else. But what would you say out of those three that I mentioned? So they had reach.
Yeah, to start with, look,
recoil.
Any long weapon in an open space is going to give you an advantage, right? Any shorter weapon in a small space is going to give you an advantage. And then let's not forget, the most important thing is who's wielding whichever one it is.
Yeah.
Because if I'm in an open space, but I have a knife, and you run towards me, and I'm an expert knife thrower, and I throw the knife in the center of your head, you're finished.
Yeah.
Right? I could have the spear, throw it, and miss. Right? The other day, I happened to watch...
It was the katanas that won, by the way.
Yeah. I can see that as being a very strong contender. They're extremely sharp. They're not too long. They're not too short.
Yeah.
I can see... Because... Yeah, I can see that. Katana against a regular length, because katanas are longer than a normal blade.
And
that's why they use two hands.
The samurais used to have a katana, and they had a shorter one called wakizashi.
But what's interesting about what's very interesting about the way the Japanese, the samurais use the sword, at least in every way I've seen it depicted, because I'm not an expert on it, right? And I've never studied kendo. But they only hold one weapon at a time.
Yeah.
Whereas in Kali, or Screamer, whatever, if I have two weapons, I'll hold them both at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'll use them both. Whether it's long and short, we have different categories. Weapons of equal length and weapons of unequal length. Whether it's two knives or whether it's a stick and a knife, whether it's a sword and a knife.
Yeah.
So we would hold both so we can hit at the same time.
The stick and the knife is a bit complicated. You have to be aware of that distance all the time.
Yeah,
changing.
I think that's the heart of weapons of the Filipino martial arts.
Yeah.
The true test of your skill, your knowledge, is what they commonly call espada y daga, which is the sword and the short knife. That's the true test of somebody who knows Filipino martial arts, in my opinion. What do I know?
So, sorry I interrupted you. You were saying you saw someone the other day.
Yeah, so I watched, I was saying I just happened to watch the other day, probably because I was bored and doing some ironing. I put on the movie Troy. With Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And in the first, I can't remember if it's not the first scene where he stabs the big guy in the neck.
He did a Superman punch type thing.
But when he later on
Special
fights the other kind of co-star of the movie, Hector, who's the other good fighter.
Eric Bana.
Yeah, he comes out with the spear.
Yeah.
And he has his shield and the sword is sheathed. So he comes out and he runs, he throws the spear is dodged, and then he pulls the sword out.
So in real life,
you have more than
you
one
wouldn't throw your spear away. That's your main weapon.
No, it depends.
But it looks good for film. That's why they like people throwing spears.
No, spears are meant to be thrown and are meant to keep people away.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, if I had that spear and I was fighting a guy with a sword, I wouldn't throw it. I'd use
You've got the longer reach.
Yeah, I'd kind of use it in a little bit of a Chinese kind of way, even though it's got a sharp end. I'd kind of use it more long, because we use it in the Filipino martial arts as well. So I would definitely keep him away using that.
Yeah.
If there's the room.
Yeah. So that's what. Those are Greek hoplites. Mm. But then there's Roman gladiators. Yeah. They've got the gladius and the shield. And do you think you'd make a good gladiator? Because I think they chuck them in the ring, in the arena, and they've just got weapons around. Like, choose one.
I don't know, but eventually all the gladiators get killed. So the learning curve is short, isn't it? Or steep and short.
You can't make a mistake.
Yeah, I made a mistake and I got chopped in my neck and I'm dead. I'll come back next week. No, you won't.
But that doesn't happen in real life. Is it Gladiator? Russell Crowe?
Yeah, all those guys. I mean, man, I'm glad I'm not around.
You get disarmed, you get rid of your shield, and you're like, come on, and the guy still wins.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm not involved in any kind of war, because back in those days you would get slashed and stabbed.
Well, they just had to be efficient.
And then these days you just get shot or blown up. Yeah. There's no, it's going to be hard to win anything like that. But
yeah, let's move on to BJJ now. I learned something when I went to Madeira. They speak Portuguese there. Okay. A lot of people think they speak Spanish because it's near the Canary Islands.
Okay.
I learned the meaning of professor. So professor in Portuguese means teacher. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So in BJJ, or in karate, you say, what? Sensei.
Yep.
In Japanese.
That also means teacher.
Yeah. And then in BJJ, they kept calling them professor. And I was like, why are they calling them professor? Like, one of my first few BJJ classes, it's like, hey, dude. And they're like, don't call him by his name. You need to call him professor. I was like, all right, sorry, I'll learn next time. So your students call you professor?
They call me different things. There's the ones they call me in my face and the one... No, I'm joking. But look, but actually my students do call me different things because it depends on what styles I'm teaching them. I'm big into general, respect and tradition to a certain extent, right?
Yeah. So
here's what I mean by respect and tradition. calling people by, titles and names, if the art has had it for a long time and so on and so forth, and you're in that kind of setting, to me is exactly the same as in school. You don't call your teacher when you're in school you don't call him Bob or Sue.
Yeah.
It's Mr. Jones, or it's Sir, or it's Madam. You're educated about respect, from the beginning. And actually, funnily enough, you could be 50 and still see your teacher from school if they're still alive, and you would call them Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
Because it's just respect. That's what you wouldn't say, "Hey John, how's it going?" You just wouldn't do that, right?
Yeah.
And even if they tell you, it's like my teacher, Guru Bob Breen. He is a personal friend. We've been friends for years, but I never call him Bob, ever. I just call him Guru, because I've always known him as that, and I'll always give him that respect, and he still is my guru, as my, the teacher of the Filipino martial arts to me.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, there is what comes out of your mouth, like we talked about the punch being the punch, and I told you the difference is what's behind it, right? The intention behind the punch, what follows, and what comes after. So, when I call my teacher Guru Bob, Guru, I'm not just saying it just because of a name, it's because I always have that respect for him as my teacher. And therefore, as my teacher, I call him that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not false thing. It's not just I'm bowing below the table and I'll pay his mortgage. He might like that. But you know what I mean? I'm not, you understand? You don't lose by being respectful to somebody else, right? You gain, I believe, because you become more appreciative of things other than yourself.
If you said teacher in English, which means the same thing as guru or professor,
pretty much,
would it sound weird?
Yeah, because you would never say
culture.
You don't in the way English language, you don't call your teacher teacher. You don't say teacher. But actually,
so the way in Japanese,
they do it differently.
Brazilian, it's just an idiomatic. It doesn't translate. It means something, but
for example, in Cantonese, I speak a little bit of Cantonese because I studied it years ago. But in Cantonese, sifu means teacher.
Yeah,
he could be your cooking teacher. He's still your sifu. But because of the Westerners' introduction to that term, it came through martial arts movies, and the sifu was always the expert.
Yeah.
So therefore, everyone thinks sifu means master. But it doesn't. It just means teacher. He's my sifu, because the sifu was always good. So therefore, and he was the master, right? So therefore, people think sifu means master. It doesn't. It just means teacher of a style of Chinese Kung Fu. Similarly, there is the term guru, which means one thing in spiritual aspects.
Is that Chinese at all?
No, it's many different forms: Indian, Malaysian, Asian, Southeast Asian.
So that part of the world.
Yeah, like for example, a guru is often a person who's, they say, spiritually enlightened, right?
You get yoga gurus.
Exactly, and then people kind of modernize it. But in martial arts terms, a guru in a system, you would have a master. Usually, you would have one head of the style, right? So he would be maybe like the Grand Master. He's the one head. Then you would have normally one master, right? Who is
like a lineage.
Yeah, who's like the most senior.
So
who would be the Grand Master, except for the fact that the Grand Master's still. And then
in a center.
Then the other teachers would be gurus, because they are teachers.
So what's done in a center?
And then below that you would have Laikan Guru, which is like an apprentice instructor. Everybody else is just a student.
Okay.
So it's normally 3 levels: the student, the teacher, and the senior student or the master.
Right.
Even though I mentioned 4, but that's kind of like generally. So people like myself, we often refer to Guru Dan Inosanto as Guru Dan Inosanto, right?
Yeah.
But actually, there are different. If you really got into the terminology, because he's the head of the style, there's other names: Mahalang Maguru, Matas Naguru. There's like. And
then what's Bob? One down.
No, well, Guru Bob is Matas Naguru. He's a full instructor, and he's the head of his own system as well. So.
Okay.
But we still call him Guru. We don't say Matas Naguru. So Guru Bob on the certificates.
And your style is CFS?
No, I don't have a style.
You don't?
No.
That's just your company?
Yeah, that CFS is the brand, if you want to call it the brand of clothing, if you want to call it, right? Okay. But...
Oh, we're moving away from BJJ. I want to talk about this.
Go on.
So I've got this clip of you fighting in... Can you talk us through it?
Yeah, that particular clip you're looking at is... it's a series of clips from the European Championships 2015.
Oh, is it more than one fight?
No, that's one fight, but different clips from that fight.
Yeah.
Actually,
the camera person's not very good.
Yeah. And actually, in this particular fight, I won this fight, and then tactically, this was really interesting. I'll tell you why. So this guy, there were actually 3 of us in this particular division in 2015, and this guy who I fought, I've forgotten his name. But he was, even though we were in the same weight category, I couldn't believe it.
You just scored a point there.
Yeah, because he was really big and really strong, and he was a 3rd degree black belt, so he was higher ranked than me. Okay. And he was head of the German Federation. Right. And he nearly out-psyched me just by looking at him because he was so big. I couldn't understand how he was in my weight category. I thought something was wrong. Plus, he was a 3rd degree, and it was just like, wow, I'm scared. And I was, and it was like... So what happened was I fought him, and I brought the best out of myself because I had to fight this guy. And respectfully, he didn't score a single point on me. So I beat him, I don't know, 8-0, 9-0, 10-0, I don't remember. Right? So I dominated the whole thing.
Yeah. So I have a feeling he was just chilling and trying to wait to catch you with a submission.
No, he wasn't chilling at all. He was trying hard. I just didn't give him any chances because I was too scared to allow him to do anything. I tried my best to completely shut him down.
More active.
So there was a couple of times he nearly threw me over his head from the floor. He was so strong.
It's coming up now when he tried to...
Yeah, I think he was so strong. It's already gone by. But even in this, so I beat this guy, and then I went into the final, and I fought a guy I'd never fought before. Yeah. And on paper, I should have beaten this guy. And I didn't. I made 2 mistakes in the fight. And one of the mistakes that I made, I made 2 technical mistakes in the fight, which I knew and I subsequently corrected, but it was too late.
Yeah, he nearly swept you.
Yeah, that's how strong he was. He literally throwing me over his head. But the other thing,
you reversed it. So when that was happening, just reacting on instinct.
Oh yeah, you have to.
You know what?
Yeah.
As soon as it starts, you know.
I was trying to keep my weight down so he couldn't lift me up.
But he was so strong.
But as he was so strong, he was lifting me up. I managed to kind of flip myself a little bit. Yeah. It's not the sort of thing. You can train for it. Some people train that stuff, and I suppose
it's difficult.
Yeah.
To simulate, isn't it?
Yeah, it's difficult to simulate. But yeah, I mean, I haven't competed like. When I say a lot, I mean there are some people who compete.
You got 7.
No, but
you won 7 times, 7 different years. I think that's a lot.
No. What I mean is there are people that compete much more frequently than I do. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, from that, let me from that aspect, I've not competed a lot, right? I've competed fairly consistently and regularly, but I wouldn't say I'm a prolific. Competitor, right? Particularly when I was working, full time. Yeah, difficult to. I used to compete 1 or 2 times a year.
So you just
it's just that they were big ones, and I more than often I would win. Luckily,
But that's where quality over quantity comes in place. Yeah. Like you're not fighting all the time. You're not getting injured.
When I won the European Championships in 2008, I won it 2008, 9, and 10, right? Purple belt and then 2 at brown belt.
When you were purple, did you have to fight anyone higher?
No, you always fight in your age, your belt, and your weight.
Okay.
So, but when I fought, I was still a full-time lawyer, and I was a partner in a law firm working full-time. So I was training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, honestly, about twice a week.
Yeah. And your competitors were doing it every day, full time?
I can't say, because I didn't know them all intimately, right? Yeah. Some of them were, some of them weren't. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But for the majority of them, they were only doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah. But you were doing JK?
I was doing everything else. So I was working full time. I was still doing my kickboxing. I was still doing Jeet Kune Do. I was still doing Filipino martial arts, and everything else that involved with it. So I was not even just focusing all my time on one style.
Yeah.
Why? Because as much as competing was important to me to challenge myself, it wasn't so important that I had to give up all the other stuff I loved just to do that one thing. No, of course, when I was coming close to compete, I would spend more time, you know, in the fitness, the nutrition, even the way I fought, even the way I trained was dedicated towards the competition, right? Focused on the stuff I was going to use rather than, you know, some stuff that I was wanting to learn. That was later on. The learning came after the comp or before, if that makes sense. When you're going to compete, you have to focus on
Just
what...
fight.
No, but then you focus on your game.
Yeah, and what you're good at.
Yeah.
There's no time to...
Or your weaknesses to make them strong, right? But you focus on. It's not the time to go out and try new moves that you've not tested yet.
Yeah. But one thing that pisses me off about judo, again, is so when you're a brown belt, you fight other brown belts to get your black at competitions and gradings, and you get 10 points for every win and Nippon. Then when you get your black belt, your first dan, you're now the bottom of the pile, and you're fighting first dans that have been first dans for 3 or 2 years. So they're obviously better than you. They're going to beat you. You get better and better. And then you fight the new brown belts that come first dans. So when you're first dan as a black belt, when you go to a competition, you can be fighting third dans and fourth dans.
Of course you can.
But you can't fight a brown belt because there's just this weird invisible line where it's fair up to one point, and then all of a sudden...
It's not that you can't. There are some competitions where they have a mix, brown and blacks.
Okay.
Do you understand? And
In
with the
BJJ.
and with the women's divisions, because there weren't so many female competitors 10 years ago, the brown and black divisions were mixed.
Okay.
They didn't even have the depth of weight classes because there weren't enough female competitors.
No.
Now there are. Right? So you have individual black belts. So, and if you think about it, you couldn't even, with BJJ being so popular like it is, you couldn't even do a mixed division. You'd be there for 2 days. The amount of competitors.
Yeah.
You know, in some of the masters black belt divisions that took place last year, I mean, you had up to 30 or 40, up 25, 30 or 40 in a division, right? Imagine if you combine with, I mean, that's a lot of fights, you know, a lot of people. You'd be there for a lot of days, you know. So there's no need to combine that.
Okay.
But also, using that same analogy, look, if you're in the Premier League, you fight Premier League players. You play, when you go Super League or whatever it is, you play Super League.
Yeah, I understand. I just feel hard done by when you're on the bubble, you're a new downgrade. So literally, I went to a grading and I had to fight a third dan and a fourth dan. I had a draw with the first guy and the other guy beat me.
But it's the same with this, though.
But I saw these brown belts fight and I was like, I could kick his ass. So I could get 10 points easily off him. But you're not allowed to fight below. But the guys above you can fight you.
But it may well be that you could have, but it's not guaranteed. You know, the belts don't...
But I saw them fighting.
Yeah, but that's the individuals.
Yeah.
You know, recently in BJJ, this is not uncommon. But recently there was a very well-established, long-time American BJJ black belt who, kudos to him, took on a competition where he fought a purple belt, and he got tapped by the purple belt. But that purple belt could have tapped me. You know, you can't ignore the individual. The belt is part of... your training is part of the formality of progression. Yeah. But it's not in itself the complete indicator of skill. You know. And to be honest with you, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, once you get your black belt, so long as you're eligible for the rules of the competition, you fight anyway. In the Europeans this year, or last year, January 18, I fought a 6-degree black belt. He's the same age as me.
Same age
as me, and he's been a black belt over 30 years.
Okay, so he's
and still teaching, and that's his profession.
Full-time.
Pioneers, and I fought this guy. Actually, I fought him twice. The first time I fought him was in 2013, in the semi-finals of. Put this into perspective. I fought him in 2013 in the semi-finals of the World Championships, World Masters. I was I think maybe I just about got my first degree then. I'm not sure, maybe. And he was a 6th degree.
So were you scared?
Oh yeah,
Obviously.
when I was looking at him in the warm-up area, I was getting blurry-eyed trying to count the number of stripes on his belt. 1, 2, 3, 4. I couldn't, and he beat me. And then I fought him. I have great respect for that guy, I really like him. Then I fought him again, second time, in the finals of the Europeans 2018. Right? He's still a 6th degree.
Yeah.
Right? Because it takes longer to get your next degree, right? But I fought it. I actually managed to beat him on this occasion. All right. But the point is, like me being a 3rd degree, someone could come into my division to fight me, and maybe he just got his black belt.
Yeah.
So he has to fight me. He could beat me. He might lose, but he has to fight me. So that's just how it is. I fought 4th degrees, 5th degrees, 6th degrees.
You just fight who's in front
You
of you.
can only
Don't
fight
think
who's in
about-
front of you. Yeah. I mean, the experience is important, but
Yeah, definitely. But it's who turns up on the day.
for sure.
Like with judo competitions, when I go, the fights are over in 10 seconds. You're like, he's better than this guy. He's going to beat him. He does. So it's only the close ones that then it's a real fight, and then you see something. But yeah, it's quite interesting. So are you still competing? Are you going for number 8 or not?
Yeah, I haven't retired.
Yeah.
So I didn't fight this Europeans, which is taking place right now this weekend, because
Okay.
I had to cancel it so I can come and do this podcast with you. No, joke.
I don't believe that.
No, I just opened my martial arts academy
Yeah.
in North Finchley, North 12 Martial Arts.
You just opened it.
But I opened it in July of last year.
Okay.
So
Cool.
I needed to spend time, focus on building that up, being in one place. So I couldn't properly prepare to compete, because you have to be a bit selfish when you do that. You have to
Yeah.
be. So I had to give to my students and so on and so forth. So I'm not doing that this year. I will fight this year at some point. That's the plan.
Right.
There's a few competitions that I've got looking my eye at. So not retired yet.
All right. Cool. That's good. It's good to see that you're still active. And are you gonna be in any filming? Are you gonna help us stunt guys? You gonna get involved yourself?
People call me, I help them.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I do. I teach martial arts, but to anybody who asks, from film work for self-defense, for progression, to help people, to teach other people.
Yeah.
I cover. My teaching experience helps me to cover pretty much most of the bases, whatever they want to use it
Yeah.
for.
I'm gonna start coming. I've been coming to your stick classes for a while now. Or I've only been there once, but I'm gonna be coming more regularly because I want to make the show reel look good. So you have to help me.
Do what we can.
And you tell me if it looks shit, and then I'll go back. Positive feedback. That's what I want. But with the stunts thing, it's quite hard to get into. Like, even once you've qualified, it just means you're a good stuntman. It means you're a good sports person. So, like, your first stunt, it's a bit of a rude awakening. Because I ride horses. Oh, yeah, that's fine. We can put this picture up with you. So I ride horses, and I did the horse test, and I passed it. You have to ride bareback. You have to jump some things. You have to ride one-handed with a sword and shield. That was quite difficult. But once you've passed the test, and then I kept hearing of all these people that go on set and ride horses, and they're like, "Oh, can you fall off?" And seriously, I've heard of 4 people that have fallen off and dislocated their shoulders. So that's a stunt. It's not horse riding. They don't want you to come and do dressage. You're doubling for someone that's just been shot with an arrow, and you have to fall off.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I need to learn how to fall off properly. I don't want the first time I fall off to be when I'm on set.
Yeah.
So I went to this guy, and he's like the don of horse riding. So he's like, I'll teach you the technique, and you do it. And he was telling me about 2 weeks ago, someone dislocated their shoulder. I was like, right, thanks for telling me that.
Yeah.
So literally, we got there, and I was like, right, I've got the technique. Just do it. Just give it some welly. Don't be scared. Don't hesitate. And he was like, right, do it. I was like, where's the crash mat? And he was like, you might not get crash mat on set. You need to do it for real. And I was like, oh, let's go over there where there's a bit more sand and it's a bit softer. He's like, no, just do it now. So the horse was stationary, but it helps if the horse is moving. You can use that momentum. So it's stationary. I did the perfect technique, and I just completely winded myself.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I couldn't breathe. So he's like, welcome to stunts. And he shook my hand.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, yeah, fair enough.
And this is one of the reasons why I don't do that stuff myself.
But then that same day, I did some on he was trotting, and I did it on the soft bit, and I didn't feel anything. So he was like, you need to learn it slow and stationary first.
Yeah.
And then you build it up. But now I've done that. I'm glad I've done that, because when I'm on set, like if you blow up your own horn and say, I've done this without crash mat before, they'll just take the crash mat away, do it. But you just say, I can do it, I'm competent, and I'll be more natural, I'll be more comfortable then.
Yeah.
And even stuff like high diving. You've seen Tom Daly when he does double twisting backflip and goes in perfect. You need to kind of be perfect for the test.
Yeah.
But then when you go on set, you're going to be in Game of Thrones. Someone's going to shoot an arrow at you on the top of the castle.
Yeah.
You have to fall down and wave your arms because you're dead.
I would be...
You fall on a crash mat.
I could be a stuntman, but I would be the stuntman who's got his stunt doubles. Yeah, fall off the cliff. So yeah, and I'll bring the guy who looks like me to fall off the cliff for me.
But you're doubling for the actor.
No, I know that. That's why I said it. That's the joke. You know what I mean? I'll be the stuntman who's got a stunt double so that I don't get hurt.
Yeah, well, people don't want to get hurt. So the new guys are always really keen and they get hurt.
Yeah.
But the older guys that have been there, they just put their hands down. They don't whatever.
Yeah. That's crazy.
You know, even the horses, they have stunt doubles.
I can imagine.
So they've got actors' horses who are tame and just go straight. And then if you need to rear or fall down, that horse has a double that will do the stunts.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really interesting.
Sounds like when...
I think we've got time up now, but I'm really glad that you came. That's been really insightful.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure to have me here. That I'm not... you know, it's been very interesting talking about this kind of stuff. And, you know, I wish you also every success in your continued journey on that.
Even apart from BJJ, do you do stick fighting competitions?
No, I do. The stick fighting competitions are armoured stick fighting competitions.
Right. A screamer.
Yeah, and I used to train it a lot. The competing side of it never really attracted me that much. No, because it's different. It's a lot of hitting and not much blocking. So from an art perspective, I'm not saying there's no skill, but it's a different kind of skill. So if somebody's really trying to hit you and there's no armour. But you know, my students, British champions, European champion. I had a one world champion in the armoured stick fighting stuff as well. So,
yeah, I'm interested in that, but not for competing because I'm worried about my fingers.
Yeah,
even the judo,
they're heavily. Everything's wrapped up. You've got armour on. It can still sting, but the sticks are light.
Right.
The sticks are light so that they can move fast.
Okay.
If it's too heavy, you can't hit many shots.
Yeah. Because I know that with judo people, they get really bad fingers from gripping. I mean, you're making it 10 times worse by getting hit with a stick as well.
Yeah, no, you don't want that to happen.
No, but hopefully you see me in the next raid or the British version of that.
Yeah, why not?
You'd
Come
be
to
like,
me and I'll show you what to
taught
do.
him that. Right, cool. Yeah, thanks for coming.
My pleasure, man. Thank you
Take
very
care.
much. Cheers. Thank you.
Right.